Aloha kākou, no Hawaii ahau o Keoni Ko'uinoa. I'm from Hawaii and my name is Keoni. Today I'll be talking about reo Māori speech recognition. And this is really a story about our community, building trust in that community, and sovereignty. I am a Hawaiian and I work at a Māori organization. And I want to bring that up as a particular point because Hawaiians and Māori have been working together for quite a long time. In fact, a lot of Indigenous people work closely with one another. And in this picture here, this was taken at a star compass that was built by Sir Heke Nukumai Puhipi. That's the man in the red shirt in the golf cart. And this hui that we had this meeting was around Māori data sovereignty. Now, next to Uncle Hector is Nainoa Thompson. Now, Nainoa Thompson is a Hawaiian, and he is, both of them were instrumental in the revitalization of traditional voyaging canoes. And so Nainoa Thompson, in his younger years, went to Aotearoa and worked alongside and studied under Uncle Hector. And so that was part of their transfer of knowledge. And so I wanted to remind us of that link of the Hawaiians and the Māori, because we've been working together for quite a long time. And even today, I'm here as a Hawaiian and I work with Te Hiku Media, a Māori nonprofit organization. And the main reason for that is my partner, who's in the middle there, next to just next to Nainoa, is Māori. And so yeah, we're a Hawaiian Māori couple, and yeah, this is what happens. So just a brief outline of my kōrero today. I really want to talk about the journey of Te Hiku Media as a Māori radio organization. And through that journey, there's themes of kaitiakitanga or guardianship, as well as sovereignty or tino rangatiratanga. And I think that really shows how we were able to build a Māori automatic speech recognition system. And then at the end of my talk, I'd just like to give some demos of some of the things that we're working on. So just some background information. Our organization represents 5 iwi from the far north of Aotearoa. So this is a map here of New Zealand. And the North Island is known as Te Ika a Maui. That's the fish of Maui, who was a god. And Te Hiku is the tail, so we're at the very north of the North Island, and by virtue of that, we're known as the tail of the fish. And so the 5 tribes that we represent as an organization are Ngāti Kuri, Te Aupōuri, Ngai Takoto Te Rarawa, and Ngāti Kahu. Now, New Zealand has a founding document which is known as Te Tiriti o Waitangi. This was a treaty that was signed by a number of tribes, Māori tribes, and the British Crown in 1840. So our organization was formed in 1990. We've been around for almost 30 years. It started out as a radio station, and our organization was born out of the language revitalization movement that started in the 70s and continued into the 80s and even till this day. There was a particular bit of legislation that opened up the airwaves or the radio frequencies to give Māori a place on those frequencies so they could broadcast in their language and broadcast the stories of their people. And actually the treaty is what enabled that. So yeah, Māori nonprofit organization. We're now a team of about 20 people, and we definitely look at intertribal, so that's amongst Māori, and you know, inter-indigenous or pan-indigenous relationships as part of our strategy as an organization. So the vision of our organization is really about transmitting language intergenerationally, and that's key for keeping languages alive, is that intergenerational transmission of language and culture and knowledge. And the mission really for our organization is about preserving and promoting the reo specific to the Haukainga, that is our region, which is the north of the North Island. There are 21 iwi radio stations in Aotearoa. Each of us represent various tribes throughout the country. And because there's 21 of us, we're able to tell the stories in the dialects that are unique to Māori throughout the country. And so that's really important in terms of language revitalization, which is preserving that nuances of the language across the regions. So here we have some of our kuia or elders, and the one on the woman on the far right is my partner's grandmother. She was born in the late 19th century, and part of the archives at Te Hiku Media include an interview from Ma Jones, and that just shows you, I guess, you know, the types of native speaker archives that Te Hiku Media has collected over the years, and that we now look after. We are in the process of digitizing these tapes. So because it's 2020, well, this started in 2014, our whole digital move, but a lot of the people from these 5 iwi that our organization represents actually don't live in our region or in the area that our terrestrial broadcast can reach. A lot of people have moved to the cities for jobs, and some people have moved overseas to Australia, for example, for work. So often our people are looking to reconnect with their iwi, with their community, with the language, particularly the language from the far north. And having a place online is essential for us to reach iwi members. And so this here is our website, tehiku.nz. It's a Django-based content management system, and we put everything in it. So this is really our repository. This is where we store our archives now, in this website. One thing we do a lot in the communities is live stream community events. That is, for example, here we have kapahaka, that's a cultural performance. We also live stream manu kōrero, speech competitions, wakaama, canoe paddling, and any other event that our community ask us to live stream. And live streaming this is about providing access to the event for those people who aren't able to make it to the event. And in this case here with kapahaka, we will broadcast a bunch of performances from different groups, from different schools, and we'll take those performances and cut them up and upload them to the website, so they're like on-demand videos of each of the school's performances. And so it's really a great way for friends and family and the community to access their culture from tehiku.nz. So since this website was launched in 2014, and we've been capturing a lot of language, a lot of stories, a lot of traditional knowledge, and even now we're uploading some of the archives that we're digitizing into our whare kōrero, into this website. And so looking into the future, we're thinking about how do we enhance access to our Indigenous language, to te reo Māori. And so one idea we had was this collection here called Te Reo o Te Kāinga. Now this is a collection of native speaker interviews. These are video interviews that were done completely in Te Reo Māori. These interviews were transcribed, and then in those transcriptions, we've highlighted colloquialisms, idioms, what we call kiwaha, or words that are unique to Te Tai Tokero, unique to the region where the 5 iwi come from. And this is one thing fluent speakers of Te Reo Māori strive to achieve, is to bring back the native sound and the native reo, the native language. And by listening to native speakers and accessing those archives, we can resurface some of the nuances or uniqueness of the reo that might have since been lost due to colonization and language loss. So I just want to show this collection here on the website.
No te kāinga o te kao, te kai kōrero e whai ake nei. Ko te reine a mu kapa tōna ingoa.
So what you see here is a moving transcription. So as the video plays, you see the part of the caption or the transcription that's highlighted. And in this red here are particular words that we've decided to tag in this transcription. And so Ingoa Arohe, that's a place name. So Te Kao is a place, that's where Auntie Lenny, the elder there, that's where she lives. Taputini, that's a type of kumara, a type of sweet potato. And that's a word and a sweet potato that comes from the region. And so it is a word unique to this area. And so you'll see that as you watch, as a fluent speaker would watch this collection, they could discover these words and see where they exist in the context of other interviews in the archive. So here, this word mahinga. So this word is used by these two elders in different interviews. And actually, when you click these links, it'll take you to that place in the interview where that word is used. So it's a really great way to help people rediscover words that might not be in common use today because of colonization, and learn about those words in context, as opposed to just looking at the definition, which is right here, the definition. So the thing about this collection is these transcriptions were done by very proficient speakers of Te reo Māori, and also speakers that come from the region, because these elders speak a reo that is unique to our area, and so not many people are able to understand them completely, or even understand what the colloquialisms and the idioms are. So Peter Lucas Jones, here, our CEO, he's one of the people who transcribed this. It took a really long time to transcribe these 10 interviews, and then these transcribers had to go in and find these words and label them and type up the definitions, all done manually by hand, on a computer, and it took a really long time. So we thought, well, why don't we use some of the cool technology that exists, such as speech recognition, to help speed up the process of transcribing. Well, as you all know, speech recognition isn't available really in Indigenous languages. So this is around 2016, 2017. And so we knew we needed this technology, and so we decided, hey, we have to build it ourselves. So we launched this project called reo Māori, which was about teaching computers Indigenous languages. Obviously, the focus was on Te reo Māori. I'm a Hawaiian, so I would love to have Hawaiian speech recognition, which is a work in progress. And so, yeah, it was really this vision of giving Indigenous languages a place in digital platforms. And for us, we really needed access to Te reo Māori speech recognition. So how does one build automatic speech recognition? Well, the first step is to just go and find some open source package out there. There are numerous packages to do speech recognition, and each have their own sort of benefits. We went with DeepSpeech because it worked really well for us. The other thing you need to do is collect enough data. And what's enough? So for Te reo Māori, the language is much more simple in terms of the lexicon and things when you look at, say, for example, Chinese or English. So we think what that means is you probably don't need as much data as you might need, say, to do English speech recognition as you would for Te reo Māori. So we had to collect a lot of text and utterances, and then we also had to quality assure that data to ensure that the data we're feeding these machine models was correct. So once you have all that, you can train a model. And once you do have a model that sort of works, what we learned was that it's really important to put that model back into your loop so you can use it to actually further grow your corpus. So you can use it to help you to whether it's review data or even help you to transcribe more data to help improve your speech recognition. So I want to show this web app that we built, which is koreromaori.com. This app, I guess, sort of streamlines the process of collecting data and reviewing data. We started this 2016, 2017, so there weren't really many tools out there. I think that's the same time Mozilla's Common Voice project started. And so it made sense for us to build our own platform to collect the data, because now this site is a database of speech, of text, of so many things that's helping our project around speech recognition and natural language processing. So what you see here is just a sentence. So you go to the site, you click the record button, and you're presented with sentences, and all you need to do is record yourself reading the sentence, listen back to it to make sure you read it properly, and then hit the save button. Ka rukuruku tū te winiwini, tū te wanawana.
Ka rukuruku tū te winiwini, tū te wanawana.
So that was, I read what was there, that was good, so I hit the save button, and then that goes into the system. The other thing you can do here is you can review other people's recordings, and that's to ensure...
e hiko e haere ana, e taki haere ana, ka ko manawa ake te anipa.
That's to make sure that the data we're getting is good. And so we have some simple rules here around what constitutes sort of katika or good, and kia kaha, which is readings that could use improvement. So a good recording is audible speech. You can hear what's being said. The speaker reads what is written, and the pronunciation is correct. So in this case here, that was actually correct. I just want to point this out here. You'll see this transcription. Because we have a speech recognition working, we're actually using that to automatically transcribe recordings that we're collecting, and that gives us an indication as to how good that reading is and whether we really need to quality review it or not. And so that helps us more quickly surface recordings that might need to be reviewed or might need to be removed from the corpus. So that's the sort of panel that we have there. So the key here is that with this web app, it was really just a tool to collect data. However, we launched a competition to motivate the community to contribute to this cause. And in doing that, we actually learned that this sort of tool was quite helpful in terms of improving literacy for reading and improving people's te reo Māori. So it was, for me, for example, it really helped improve my reading just by reading a lot of sentences using kōreromāori.com. So when we launched this campaign to get people to contribute to our cause, we managed to collect over 300 hours in the course of 10 days. And, one of the reasons why we were really successful at doing that is because we've built a lot of trust in the communities over the years in terms of how we look after data and how we collect data. And so when we approach the community to say, look, we want to build speech recognition and other innovative tools, but we actually need data to do that, we said to the community that we're going to collect this data in a culturally appropriate way. We're only going to use it for the purpose of language revitalization and promotion, and we're going to use it to help create digital innovations for Māori by Māori. And so that was enough for the community to be like, yep, that's a great cause. We're keen to support it. Let's go in and do our readings. So around, the idea of like ownership of data, well, that's the wrong question. Like, we don't own the data that we've collected here in this web app. We are just the guardians of that data. So this is the whole, Western ownership versus Indigenous guardianship. It's like land, right? Traditionally, we never owned land. We looked after land because we knew that if we looked after the land, it would look after us. Likewise, we think we should treat data exactly the same. Our data and our knowledge and our tools, our IP, we should treat that with respect, and we should guard it and protect it and use it for the right causes that are culturally appropriate. And if we do that, then we'll only do better for ourselves. However, if we want te reo Māori and other Indigenous languages to be ubiquitous, they'll have to exist on these platforms. They'll have to exist on the Apple iPhone and Alexa and Cortana and Siri. That's the only way our languages will become more ubiquitous. But that poses an interesting challenge, because if our languages are available on those platforms, who profits from that? So before we get into that, what are the goals of giving access to Indigenous data or tech? And for us, what's really important is that we maintain sovereignty over the data and the tech, and that that's really just ensuring that we have the power to decide how the data is used and how the tech is used, because that means we can ensure the data and the tech is used for good for our people and our communities. We also want to create more opportunities for our people, especially high-tech jobs, doing machine learning and speech recognition. Wouldn't that be great if we had more Indigenous people in tech, working on machine learning and things like that? So one way that we can do that is by actually building these technologies ourselves and creating those opportunities for our people. Finally, this is really about promoting language and culture from a Maori worldview. And so we need to ensure that the data that we collect and the technologies that we create help us, again, to further the mission of our organization. So I have this question here. If we give tech companies access to data, could they sell language services back to our people? And this is really important because, the way that Google works and Google's API, for example, is your Google phone will know the same languages that the Google Cloud API thing knows, right? So if you want your Android phone to speak your Indigenous language, it means your Indigenous language needs to be available on Google's Cloud API services, which means anyone in the world can now access your language as a service. And by accessing that API, Google actually, charges money for that. You have to pay Google to access their cloud APIs. So all of a sudden, you have a non-Indigenous entity selling an Indigenous language as a service. We don't think that's the right approach. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Let's just think about land again, right? All of our land was taken away. Some of us don't have our land yet. Some of us have a sliver of the land we used to have. And when I say have, I mean like the land that we had access to, the land that we used to look after. We no longer have rights to protect those lands because of colonization. So now what we're seeing is big tech are coming after our data, and they even want Indigenous data. So I want to bring up Lionbridge. So Lionbridge has been soliciting Indigenous people to give them their Indigenous voice reading Indigenous sentences. In their emails, they're saying, language revitalization is important. Yes, it is. And they're passionate about helping to save Indigenous languages. Well, that's cool. But they'll pay you $45 USD if you contribute like an hour of your voice. And for someone who might have their native language, who's been marginalized and could use $45, they might think, yeah, hey, why not? But then all of a sudden you're allowing Lionbridge to have access to that data forever, and they can then go and on-sell that to any company. Lionbridge sells globalization as a service. And so that we don't think is the right approach. I want to bring up Duolingo. I believe they genuinely want to help save and revitalize Indigenous languages. But this is a sample of one of their loading screens, and it says, more people are learning Irish on Duolingo than there are native Irish speakers. Now that's a bit patronizing, and it's really rude to the years of Irish people working to revitalize and save their language. And I know they didn't mean any harm with that, but that's what happens when, sort of tech come in and try to save the day for us and lack the real cultural knowledge and context of what we're trying to do. So there's a lot of improvement to be had. I do want to mention a license that we're working on. It's called the Kaitiakitanga license. What it really is it's like open source, but with affirmative action. So in terms of the data and the tools that we've built and collected, so we have Maori speech recognition. Now we feel only Maori-led organizations or initiatives should have access to these tools initially. So we want to make sure that Maori are the first to have access to Maori speech recognition before anybody else, because that's the only way Maori will have an equal opportunity to compete against non-Maori who might want to use Maori speech recognition tools. Interestingly, but not surprisingly, many non-Maori have been approaching us for access to Maori speech recognition. And that just reminds us of the inequality in the tech sector. You know, all the big tech companies in New Zealand are run by non-Maori dudes. And we really want to grow diversity in tech. And so again, affirmative action open source is our Kaitiakitanga license, and we think that's one way to help solve that problem. Another option, and I talked about Google selling our languages as a service, or any big tech selling our languages as a service, is really to adopt that royalties model that, for example, artists get when they make music. So when you stream music on Spotify, every time you play that song by that one artist, a bit of money goes to that artist. So then why can't we do the same with our data? So if profits are generated from any bit of data, then a portion of that profits should go back to the communities from which the data originates. That seems fair. And in fact, if Apple were to agree to those sorts of terms, then we might be in a position to say, yeah, okay, we're happy for Te reo Māori to be on the Apple platform, so long as any profits gained from that can get back to the community. We'll see. So now, Te reo Māori ASR, I just wanted to highlight a few things that helped us, or some statistics around our speech recognition. So first of all, Te reo Māori, and in fact all the Pacific languages were oral languages. They were only transcribed recently through colonization, and because the missionaries wanted to share the word of God via the Bible, and so by transcribing our languages, they were able to translate the Bible into our native languages and get us to follow the Bible. So in Te reo Māori, there are 10 consonants and 5 vowels. So that's only 15 characters compared to 26 or whatever in English and thousands in some Asian languages. So in that sense, it's a bit more simple than other languages. Now for deep speech, and I think for most other speech recognition, generally you need an alphabet, and that's these consonants and these 5 vowels. You need a lot of text, and that helps you to build a language model so that when things are being said, the language model predicts what words you're saying and what phrases you're saying. And then finally, you need utterances, and that helps to teach the acoustics of the language to the model. So for our Te reo Māori speech recognition, we have about 400 hours of data, about 5 million words, and that together gives us a word error rate of around 10%. It depends. It can be better, and it can be worse depending on the acoustics, the device you're using, what you're saying, and who's saying it. So that's Māori speech recognition. I think the best way to show you that is to just show you some demos. So this is a little demo we have just to demonstrate the speech recognition. It uses a voice activity detection thing. So let's give it a go. E whakarongo ana koe ki te reo. No hea koe. E pēhea ana koe. Yay, it's working. Let's just play this back.
E whakarongo ana koe ki te reo.
So what you see there is some red bits, and the red is the confidences that the model's giving back in terms of how much it thinks it got what you said correct. And in this case, it actually did transcribe me correctly, which is good, but that just shows you that the model is still not really certain and needs improvement. In this case,
No hea koe.
where are you from? That one, yeah, no red, so that was good.
E pēhea ana koe.
Now, for some reason, it didn't like the pehea, but again, it transcribed me correctly. So these confidences are something that we're pulling out of deep speech so we can do something else, which is measure pronunciation. So I'll take you to that now. So with these confidences, well, let me go back. So one thing we learned from our Kōrero Māori campaign is that a lot of people really wanted immediate feedback on how well they were doing in terms of reading and pronouncing Te reo Māori. So we took that feedback and went about to develop our own pronunciation model. And we're using DeepSpeech to do this. So we're sort of hacking it because it wasn't really designed for pronunciation feedback. It was designed to do speech recognition. But here what you see is a target sentence. And so what we're doing is we're telling DeepSpeech, this is the sentence output that we want. And if I were to then read that sentence, what are the confidences that the model gives back? And can that help me detect whether I'm reading, I'm pronouncing these words properly? He rā anō a pōpō. So that was correct reading of the sentence.
He rā anō a pōpō.
So again, we see a bit of red. I mean, it was correct. It probably could have been better. I'm not a fluent speaker. But let's try now reading with intentional incorrect pronunciation. He rā anō a pōpō. So in that case, I didn't elongate my vowels. Those are the O's with the macrons. And I said ra instead of ra.
He rā anō a pōpō.
So it sort of noticed that I didn't really do that pōpō right. And it did pick up that incorrect R sound. So that's just a demonstration showing how you can use DeepSpeech and these confidences with a bit of tweaking on the back end to do real-time pronunciation. It's something we're still working on, but this is one of the outcomes of building your own speech recognition system, is then you can then say, well, what's next? And in this case, pronunciation is next. So I just want to show this UI that we have here. So I showed you earlier kōreromaori.com where we can review recordings. And so what we're doing here is we're splitting up each of the letters in the sentences and making an interface where someone can actually select which of these sounds might have been incorrectly pronounced. So let's have a listen.
Ka hore ngaku kōrero tūtara ki taku iwi mō te paremata. Ka hore ngaku kōrero tūtara ki taku iwi mō te paremata.
So that there was a sound like a naku or something there, but that was written as a aku. So in that case, I would label that character, that sound there, as incorrect. And the point of this is so that we can build sets of data that we can use to validate our pronunciation models. So we want our model to tell us where we're wrong when we are wrong. And if we are correct, it shouldn't tell us that we're wrong. It should tell us we're correct. So this UI here is to help us to label data for that specific instance. And now the final thing I want to show you is kaituhi. This is a automatic, this is a transcription tool that we built, and it uses our automatic speech recognition in the back end. So here's a news item that I uploaded. And so what you do is you upload audio to this web app. It cuts it up into chunks using sort of audio voice activity detection or silence detection. And yeah, and it's just a web-based UI to do transcriptions. So that's the magic button, the auto transcribe button. So I've hit that, and there you go. So now this is the recording being transcribed. When it works pretty fast. We'll have a listen.
Ngā take o te tai tokerau.
Tau katoa kua tahuri mai ki nei tai pito pito kōrero o te haora. Atu i te reo irirangi Māori o te hiku te ika, ko ngā take o te tai tokerau e haere ake nei.
So e haere ake nei, though that was wrong. It said I taua mea ki te, which is strange. So we can just go in there and fix that, e haere ake nei. And so we're bringing those confidences into this UI so the user can more quickly see where the automatic transcription might need to be corrected. So yeah, this is the web app that we built using Te Reo Māori speech recognition, and we are using it now to transcribe all of our archives. And so just gonna quickly show you, this is our Te Hiku Media organization. We have this Papareo project. You can see there are 94 transcriptions. So we're uploading data, we're automatically transcribing them, and we have people going in and correcting those transcriptions. All of this data gets synced back to kōreromaori.com, which then makes it back to our training to improve our Te Reo Māori speech recognition. So yeah, that's There you go, Māori, Māori ASR. So thank you very much for this opportunity to have a kōrero with you, and hopefully, ahui ho.